right. Welcome back to the Board Drill Podcast. As always, I'm Kyle here with my co-host Matt. And tonight we have Coach Adam Donnelly from Lake Mary High School in the Orlando area. He's been the offensive coordinator there for just shy of 27,000 years. 18 years he's been there. So he's been a staple in that Central Florida area. And tonight he's going to talk to us about vertical choice. So Coach, welcome to the Board Drill.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great to be here.
Everybody loves our cheap soundboard. All right, so Coach, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about vertical choice and kind of some things that go along with it. So really, I'm going to go ahead and give you the show here, and we're just going to cut in and ask stupid questions probably.
All right, sounds good. So we have we were looking at this in the off season last year. Not like we were the only ones looking at what Tennessee was doing to put up a whole bunch of points and stuff like that. But even Heupel had been at UCF before, and so it was a little bit familiar, and yet they don't like have a ton of stuff out there, and it's not the most open thing to try to get some of the Bryles wide split stuff and all that deep choice stuff. They make it pretty hard to find. So
Coach, they're known for making it hard to find and splitting it up. And I've heard on certain staffs, not even everybody on the offensive staff knows the whole offense. That's how secretive they can be about it. So that didn't shock me.
I just had one of them ask me about it off of the USF staff, and he's like, "Well, who gave you the stuff?" And I was like, "I just found some. I don't know what to tell you. You want to keep secrets? I'll keep secrets too." But so I spent, a buddy kind of said, "Hey, I think this could fit your personnel really well. Take a look at it." And I thought he was right. We had excellent quarterback coming back with a big, strong arm, and we wanted to find a good way to utilize it to spread the field. And it was nice to have a chance to plan around him, knowing he would be the guy. So we were looking for something to kind of spice up our passing game a little bit, change up what we had been doing, and utilize some of his skills. And so I started looking into it, and I'm telling you, the beginning was literally, I got Tennessee's all 22 from the whole year, and I just watched every rep in a row and like got an Excel spreadsheet out and would mark down plays that I was pretty sure were deep choice, but I didn't really know what I was looking for. So I was just trying to figure it out as I could go along, and eventually got what I thought was a pretty good handle on it, and then tried to build out some rules from that. Then I stumbled upon what I thought was a clinic, which was definitely not a clinic, just somebody talking about it, somebody like me trying to make some stuff up. And but that gave me a little bit better understanding, at least somebody else's perspective on it. And slowly just started to build some rules. Heard a little bit of stuff from the USF guys when that staff changed and that kind of thing. And they have a bunch of different ways they call it and stuff like that, and different depths that they make decisions. And I was nervous for what I could get my guys to understand, and especially with no experience in it. So I wanted to try to make it as simple as possible, get some basic rules that everybody could follow. And mostly what I was worried about is, can I get my QB on the same page with the receivers if like none of them know what the route is, till halfway through the play. Like, I know it seems weird, and having coordinated for a long time and using a lot of air raid staples, like, sure, we had some conversions, but you knew pretty much what was going down and that kind of stuff. And this is a little bit different, but it was good to us. So I'm going to throw up on the screen some of the things, and then please understand that it was our first year doing it, so the sample size is small, but this was kind of intended as an exercise for me to go through and see, like, what do we need to do better? How can we change it? Things like that. So I talked a little bit about why we picked it. We want to take shots and stretch the field both vertically and horizontally. So we did push the splits very wide last year. our QB has a really strong arm, so we can throw like the quick screen stuff out there really easy. So if you're not going to widen out and cover down on that, we are going to be able to make you pay really quick.
So
But
real quick,
go ahead.
I'm going to pause it. Talk to me about your split rules. What are, let's just call them base. You're in the middle of the field. Where are you teaching them to get on the splits?
So if the ball was in the middle of the field, we're taking the say we're 2x2, we're taking the wide receiver, and he's going to go about halfway between the numbers and the sideline. Might adjust by the play, that kind of thing. And then we're going to take the slot and we're going to put him on the numbers, which is probably twice as far from where they were before, but then we also will mess with we did a lot of stack this year, which was something we always had but never really used enough. So we got more used to it and tried more things out of it this year. And when we stacked, the slot would go out with the outside receiver and he would go so the stack was about halfway between the numbers and the sideline. So and we talked about just like, hey, if it's a run play, go fool with these guys and go walk out there and see if they'll go with you or not, and we started building like the kids' experience and football intelligence with, when have I gone too far? Like, do I need to actually block that guy? If he won't come with me, do I need to motion back in and go get him?
Yeah.
Or do we have a solution built in? If he doesn't come with me, do we have a little like RPO screen or something we can throw out here? And so just getting them used to it, because it was something I hadn't really played with either.
Yeah. Yeah, I asked because I dealt, as a DC, I dealt with an offensive coordinator that was vertical choice and wide splits. Super fun to line up to every day at practice.
Right. And our defense quickly became frustrated with us in spring practice. And they're an outside backer blitz, like 3-4 reduction team and that kind of stuff. We were able to turn off a lot of the blitz stuff by pushing them out there. I mean, they'd blitz somebody else, they'd bring an inside back or something, but we were able to force them to do something different.
Yeah.
So a couple of the other reasons we kept it, like, it's super versatile. We can carry this into every game. We don't care about the coverage. It doesn't matter. Obviously, there are certain matchups we'd like to get. We'd like a receiver to get 1v1. But for the most part, the rules are going to let them do that versus just about any coverage, and who I'm calling it to and things like that. So this is like, it doesn't matter what I see when I watch the scout film. Like, this play is going to be it in some version. And then, there's a lot of disguise these days, a lot of rolling and spinning coverage and things like that. And this play just doesn't care because it's going to read you post snap. So the QB doesn't have to know what it is. Obviously we got to keep him protected and that kind of stuff. But as far as coverage change, he's not worried about that. And then for the QB to read, my QB is young, so I don't mind giving him some progression stuff, but this is one where it doesn't have to be progression. He can rely more on his arm talent. So it's more about seeing what we're doing than what the defense is doing, and that's a little bit easier. So he's got some progression plays, and then he's got this one where it's easier and he can just kind of watch us. As far as how it went, first year doing it, it was super explosive. So we were 43 of 86, which at first I was a little disappointed, but 12 yards per attempt. So we're completing at 50%. So 24 yards per completion. We are definitely stretching the field with this pass. And that was the goal, right? Is we wanted to have something that would really stretch the boundaries and stretch things vertically. We can be more efficient by, catching the ball more consistently. I'm never going to get the refs to call defensive pass interference right, so that probably won't change.
It doesn't exist. That's why, Coach. There's no such thing.
Thanks for letting me know. All these years I've been asking for it. I'm going to show some issues. we didn't have this issue much throughout the year, but at the beginning of the year, I'll show one where the QB and the wide receiver weren't on the same page and how poorly that can go in a hurry. We had more overthrows on this than on other stuff, so we're kind of looking into that. I was talking to the kids about it today in one of our meetings, and I think that was just a thing of like, you don't know what he's gonna do till he breaks, at least not for sure, and so sometimes then we're rushing it a little bit, and I think that definitely got better as the year went along. I think we were just maybe a little bit excitable on it. And then, and the other piece is receiver stacking, which, you know, no different than any other concept, but the better we can get at that, the more it's going to make this play really go, and we'll figure it out and find a way to do better.
And Coach, we installed it in 2018. And we saw the same thing that you just said. That just stuck out to me, that we would overthrow it all the time in practice and in games. The quarterbacks seemed a little jittery, and they're trying to force the ball out far to and way further than they needed to in front of the receiver. So I'd like to, definitely hear later what you guys are finding and what you do to fix that issue.
Yeah, so I mean, the quick version is, so originally my plan was, you know, 3-step drop, 1.8 seconds approximately. The receiver will get to 10 in about that time, which is where we're telling them to make the break. And I was hoping we would just like be on the same page and you know, both know what to do, but that's just not a guarantee, right? So the reality is it's more to make the QB comfortable and really hit it in rhythm without having to worry about like a guessing game at 1.8 seconds. It's really 3 and a reset, you know, so it's going to be about 2.2 seconds. And then that ball's coming out. And I timed a bunch of ours on huddle after the season to try to get a feel for this. And if you think about like a progression read, so if I'm running 3-step drop back progression, my first read's going to be at about 1.8. Second read's going to be about 2.2. My third read's going to be about 2.6. So if we only threw to the first read all year long. We theoretically have some other places we can go with it on this, and I'll talk about those later. But every single one we threw to the tagged receiver. So that means the ball's coming out in 2.2 almost every single time. Well, guess what? We only took 2 sacks this year. Like, I mean, we had a good O-line. Those guys played their butts off. But they also really enjoy pass protection when it only has to last for 2.2 seconds. You know?
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier.
So we got in more of a mode where it's like 3 steps, confirm their route, and then rip it. And now everybody's a little bit more like on the same page and had a little bit less of the overthrow issues as we went along. Pull this back up here. So, you know, these were kinds of the things like, I'm old now. You know, I used to be the young guy at the clinic. Now I'm old and I've been doing this a long time. And the reality is, you know, at clinics, you're going to see a lot of stuff and a lot of it seems good, but it's not all for your team, right? So does this play fit your people? Your QB is definitely going to need a big arm because the wide splits are pretty important to the choices you give the kids. He's going to need deep ball accuracy for sure, because you're going to end up running a bunch of goes and posts. Just talked about the O-line thing, so that's kind of that part there. And then, you know, you need a speed at receiver. I mean, who doesn't want speed at receiver? But we definitely had one of our faster groups ever, so that definitely helps. And you got to be unselfish at receiver, because there have been guys that I have had that I promise you they would have run a go every single time. Like, oh, you're giving me some choices? I'm going to run a go. Yeah, and that's just not what we want. You know, that's not reading the play out and doing what you're supposed to do. Some sound. Yeah. So we had a long talk about that. How do we do what's right for the team and the moment and the coverage and all that kind of stuff? So I've got some film here. to talk through some of the good and the bad. So this is I think it's the first one we ran the whole year. This is Kickoff Classic, and we're running it to the slot at the bottom here. And so he goes up to his 10 yards, and that safety's backpedaling. He opens his hips up a little bit, but it's also a good illustration of like, you got to know where that other safety is. And that other safety is outside the hash by probably 5 yards at least. And he's pretty low. So there is no chance he's helping on a post. And we got tons of space there. And so he just takes his speed, makes his move, and uses the speed. We put a ball right on the money, and he's gone. So,
Coach, at a 2x2 there, you're 2x2 on the field. For those listening, what are your rules? What are you telling your receivers? Are you going, hey, you're number one, you're number two? What exactly were you telling them as your rule?
So I've got a slide in a minute that's gonna kind of handle this better, but the rules are basically there's a tagged receiver. That's the guy who gets to make the choice. And then you're asking yourself, am I outside of that guy? Am I inside of that guy? Or am I on the other side of the field? And we got a rule for each of those things. So I mentioned before, like, I know the Tennessees and the South Floridas of the world, they got a bunch of different words for who's doing it and what the breaks are and all that kind of stuff. We use it's one word, one concept. Like, we tag different guys, but we have one version of this, and we only break at one route depth. I know, like, there could be some other options there we could explore and that kind of stuff, but the guys learn this well because we just got one set of rules that works whether you're outside or inside or whatever you need. And if we come up in some weird formation or we want to get in a weird formation that week, we'll just try it in practice, and we'll do, let's try deep choice, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Do all of those look good? If not, throw two out and I won't call them, but the kids know how to do all of them. So I'll do that a little bit more when I get to that slide. That way we'll have a visual to go with the audio.
There we go.
Click past this. So that's when things go good. Here's the same game. This is when things are going bad. So we get up by a little, and we're trying to play some different people and let them. Oh,
yeah, you may want to share it. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. So we get up by a little, and we're trying to play some different people, and we are playing a kid that hadn't been in our system for very long, and so this is his first crack at it, and so he breaks. Let's see if I can slow this down a little bit. He breaks, or at 10 yards, when the QB thinks he's made the decision, he's still running a go. He's still running straight. Now he decides to post right after that, but the QB's already thrown the ball. And so this is kind of my example for, like, if the QB and the wide receiver aren't on the same page, if we're not all doing what we're supposed to do, we're going to look really stupid. And this was my fear. Now, we worked it out, and we I don't think we had this problem again the whole year. This was a good learning lesson for everybody, that you better make your cut at 10, or else the QB is going to throw the ball in the middle of nowhere. And here we get picked. Great play by the DB. But
it was a heck of a pick, by the way. Wow.
No doubt about it. That kid is good.
For those of you listening on the podcast, this corner fully extends, dives above his head, and catches it and lands flat on his back. It's an incredible pick. Coach, I'm not trying to point out a bad thing that's happening in your offense, but man, that's a hell of a pick.
No doubt about it. Great by that kid, right? But so that illustrates that, like, this is what happens if it goes wrong, but the way it went wrong is very fixable. We got to get on the same page, and we should be able to do that really well. I talked about the overthrows. I put this in as an example of one of the overthrows. So we've absolutely got the post here, or the bend is what we ended up calling this most of the time. But he just overthrows it, and it's a, we know we've got it, and then we get a little too excited, and so we're gonna work on that and see if we can work those out of there. And the last one I said was the stacking, and this becomes way more important if you're going to use wide splits. So kind of ignore the left side. They weren't worried about their splits because they knew it was going the other way. And so the receiver at the top, he is halfway between the numbers and the sideline, just like we talked about. And he beats his guy outside. Great job there. But he never steps back in front of him to stack him. And so now he's left the QB no space to fit this ball in. If he steps back in front of that DB and stacks him, we can throw this ball anywhere. But if we start so close to the sideline, make our move outside and never stack back, there's just not a lot of space out there. And so this is going to be our example this year for our receivers of why it is so important when you get a chance to stack this guy back up, you got to do it. You absolutely got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. So
you're good. Keep rolling, Coach.
Yeah. So we talked about rules. That we're going to hit the rules here. So teaching the tagged receiver, speed to 10. It doesn't matter if you inside release, outside release. Don't get touched. Don't stress about it. Don't give me a lot of moves coming off the line. I need you to get to 10 as fast as possible. Why do we need that? We need it to time up with the QB. We can't have you spend 2 seconds making a release move. QB's already made his drop and you haven't gone anywhere. So we need you to get up and start breaking cushion and figuring out what you're going to do. When you get to the 10 yards, you got 3 choices. Originally, I was trying to figure this out. And again, this is because I watched film and didn't really know what was going to happen, what the actual rules were. So originally, we were going to have the slots could go or dig, I think it was, or go post or dig, and the outside guys could go post or what we call trace, like come back straight down their stem. And so we had different rules for slots and outside. And then Chip Lindsay was from UNC and formerly of UCF, was at our practice, and we were talking about it. And I was like, what do you do? Do you give them 4 options? Like, can everybody go post, dig, trace back down their stem? Seems like a lot of options. He's like, well, we don't think of it as post or dig. It's just bend. You're going to run a go, you're going to bend inside, or you're going to trace back down. And the bend is a feel for how much do you need to bend to get open. And I said, you know what? You just solved my problem. I can live in that world. And we gave that to the receivers the next day, and we never looked back. That was great for us.
It's almost the old adage of, I've heard a lot of offensive coaches lately just say, like, look, we tell that guy to bend and just find open grass. And the quarterback knows, like, if you're going to make a mistake, make it to nowhere. So if you throw a bad throw downfield, it's incomplete. And we hear a lot about that with how McDaniel teaches Tua and Tyreek and all that, right? That they just tell Tua, throw it to an open spot and Tyreek will run it down. And I was like, that's not real. And they're like, no, that's real. Like, that's really real. He knows there's a cross. He's going to find the open piece of the field and throw it and let Tua or Jalen Waddle run it down. And I'm like, well, that's a really good idea.
When you as got a defensive guy, I hate that. You can do whatever you want.
As a defensive guy, I'm like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So the tag receiver, basically, he's going to be reading a DB. If he breaks all that cushion and he gets on top of him, he needs to go. He should go straight down the field and let's put it on him and let's go after it. If he tries to do that and that DB has maintained cushion and you can't get on top of him, then you need to trace back down for the most part. All right. There are some times where you'll bend it back in. When do we include the bending in? If that DB's hips are opening to the outside, and think about it, we already line up outside. We are inviting you, please turn towards us, right? And if you do, we're going to make you have to flip your hips back the other way. And I was talking to the kids about it today, and I was like, all the DBs we play in important games are fast. They all have that in common. What they can't do is be fast while flipping their hips at 180 degrees. You know what I mean? Like, so if you can get them to open, then you can flip them back inside and bend them inside. And now you're going to beat them just about no matter how fast you are. You know, obviously we got to put the ball on you and that kind of stuff. But that's the place where we got to take advantage, because the DBs in the important games are all so good that, like, you're not just going to be open. Like, you've got to work that to get open. Let me hit the next one here. Share it out. So next we're going to talk about the untagged receiver. So, and this is what Matt was asking about before. So if the tag receiver is outside of you, all right, so if you're the slot and we tag the guy outside of you on the same side, your job is to bend and hold the safety. How far do you bend? I don't know. You got to hold the safety. Figure it out. Like, if it's middle of field, post safety, go run through his vision and take an angle that will turn his shoulders away from the other guy, away from your side. If it's too high safeties, go get in his vision right away and then pull him inside. But it's your job to get that safety away from the outside receiver so he can do his thing one-on-one with the corner. We don't want him to be able to be doubled in some way, whatever their version of that is. If the tagged receiver is inside of you, so if you're if like the one we were watching before, if I am running it to the slot, the outside guy is going to run a trace and just make himself available. We do have the ability to throw it to that guy. It would be if the corner fell off on the slot receiver and helped deep, then we would throw the trace. And that's why it says, and just be available. What would be in the way? Well, the outside backer is the one person who has a chance to kind of be in the way. So we just want to keep working through a window where that outside backer will get out of the way and the QB can see us. And lastly, if the tag receiver is on the other side, then, I mean, listen, you watch these Tennessee guys and they sometimes don't do anything. They just stand there, which I think is awesome. My head coach might fire me if my kids did that, and I wouldn't even blame him. And the other thing is, we don't go at that unbelievable tempo that they go at sometimes. I think they're doing it to steal some rest and that kind of thing.
Yeah, they absolutely are.
So we're going more at like your kind of call it at the line type of pace. Let me take a look at it and we'll pick it when we get there. That, for the most part, we have the ability to go faster or slower. But so I don't need to steal a ton of rest for them. So they kind of run like last year we did a bunch of like really lazy curl flat. They knew they weren't the first look. They ran curl flat and their orders were, if we get into scramble drill, you better be alive, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you better turn it on. And that they were good with that. They ran curl flat. They knew to drag attention away. There were a couple times where like it'd be too high, and if they ran curl flat, the safety would kind of ignore them and start to drift to the other side. So they'd ask like, hey, can I run a corner instead so I can get his attention and keep him away from it? Sure. Thank you for sacrificing for the team. Great job. But they had the intelligence to ask for that and stuff like that. So we're playing with that a little bit this off season with exactly how we're going to do it and what's going to be affected. But mostly, if you've got really wide splits and they're going to walk out there with you, you don't have to do a whole heck of a lot. You've already done your job. You pull people away from the deep choice side.
Hey, Coach, you talked about your trace route as being the outside route there. What are you giving them for the rule for the trace route? Is a certain amount of steps or yards they're looking to go, or you just tell them it's like a curl?
So they're still doing their speed to 10, right? That's their stem. Doesn't matter if it's inside or outside because they don't know that they're going to run. Well, so actually, let me rephrase. Okay. If they do know they're going to run it because the slot has the choice, they're going to run it just like they have choice. So they're going to go speed to 10. And then they are going to come right back down their stem. So I let them turn inside. It's not a comeback. You don't have to turn over your outside shoulder. You can turn inside, and that way you'll see the linebacker pretty quickly. But you do generally have to come right back down your stem. The only way you wouldn't do that is if the linebacker had gone underneath your stem, and then you could kind of curl it inside. like your more traditional curl, candy cane style. But for the most part, you come right back down that stem until you find a way you can look at the QB. There's no number of steps. We caught one at like 3 yards. I don't care. You broke it 10. You keep coming down until you can see the QB, and he'll throw it to you if he wants to. What happens with that a lot is the corner, because it gets to 10, it's kind of in his range where he's starting to think, I got to take this, right? So then when you come back down, he comes back down with you, and it helps the slot to get open a little bit. Not to have to worry about that corner going with him on a go or something like that. I can't say, I really don't think we ever threw it when it was untagged like we're talking about right here, but we did teach the QB, and we talked about it today. Like, it is still in, it's available. I got one on here that I'll show where, like, I wouldn't have blamed him if he went to that. He ended up throwing a seam for 30-40 yards, so I'm not going to tell him he was wrong. But that's what we tell. It's just trace right back out, right down your stem, find a place to be open. So let me share this back here. I've got a couple of clips of each decision being made, and it happens to be the same kid each time, which was unintentional, but also we called it to him more than anybody else. So it's always going to be the receiver at the top, although this time they're pretty much in a stack. This against Mainland in the last regular season game, and we played unbelievably well. But so we start in a stack, but we're not doing anything special coming out of the stack. The back receiver was tagged, so the front receiver in the stack is going to bend and hold the safety. That's his job, right? So you see him climb up the linebacker and then bend in, and sure enough, he has gotten the linebacker and the safety to go with him. So we've got 2 guys covering the guy we know is not getting the ball. That's a huge win for me. And then we get our best receiver going against the 3 or 4 star corner, but they were both unbelievable. But he gets on top, and because he got on top and broke all the cushion, he makes the decision to go. QB puts the ball in there, and we get a touchdown against the state champion. So here's an example of the bend. You can see our running back chopping his feet because he crazily thought that he would just go whenever he felt like it, but he played it off like all of us coaches always tell him to try to, and it's the first time I think anyone did it successfully. So at the top here, we've got switch, right? So we all have done switch verticals and things like that, right? So if we call switch choice, they are going to swap tubes, is how we explain it. So the slot will take the outside tube, and he will treat it like he's the outside receiver. So you can see he's going to run a trace now. All right. And then the outside guy is tagged. He switches into the inside tube. And then look at what this does to the safety. Look at this action. As we go to switch, look how wide open his hips are over there. Yeah. He is fully facing the sideline. And so now it's a really obvious decision. If I'm the tagged guy running against that safety, I'm going to bend. He bends, QB puts it in there, and now it's a foot race, and he's the number 17 lacrosse player in the nation, so he wins a lot of foot races. Signed with UNC.
That's great stuff, Coach. Yeah, that's great stuff with that switch release. I haven't seen that yet from a high school guy. That's impressive.
Appreciate it. It was one of those things like, all right, how can I keep this simple for my guys, right? And so I told them, all right, we're going to do switch. You guys have done switch before, but now how do you know what you're going to do? Well, you just switch into the other guy's role. And since they all have to know what to do if they're tagged inside, outside, or on the other side of the field, they can take any role at any time, so it doesn't matter.
Well, it's blowing my mind because switch has always been a big part of my passing game, and I never thought to do this. It's just driving me nuts right now because, I mean, we install switch when we install our verts. So, you know, for verts, we install switch right then too, and we do switch hitch, but never thought it to incorporate it with the vertical choice concept.
And sometimes you just need it as a changeup, you know?
Oh, yeah. That's great stuff.
It's like, come on, man. You're a big UCF guy, man. That's a hypo staple, man.
I should have known.
Right. So so we've seen the go, we've seen the bend. So we'll show the trace.
You gotta reshare.
Yep. Too many buttons. All right. So we are stacked again, and no switch here. So we can switch out of the stack, and they would switch tubes. So like normally this guy is the can I write on? Yes, I can write on my own huddle. Awesome. So normally that guy is the outside receiver, and he knows that.
So John, sorry, just for those listening, he's got 2 stack receivers. He's saying the number 2 receiver is his outside guy. The number 1 receiver on the ball is going to be his inside guy.
Correct. And so if I was to call switch, they would switch to the opposite tube of where they normally are. Since I didn't call switch, the slot guy knows to go back to the slot where he belongs, and the back guy goes back to the outside where he belongs, and everything goes back to normal. We're just trying to mess with Dr. Phillips's man coverage here, as those guys, you know, are trying to play. You know, we didn't know what they're going to play, but you know, if you're in stack and it's going to be man, there's only so many things. You got your inside out and top hat and all the weird little names for them. But we just wanted to mess with it and make them do something. Think about it a little bit. So what ends up happening is the front guy, the press guy goes with the front guy and takes him all the way man to man. He bends, the safety breaks on it. And so now we've got 2 guys covering the bender again, who we never intended to throw it to. He's not in the progression. We're not even thinking about him. And then we've got 1 guy, the off guy that was covering the stack. He's got the back guy from the stack who is making the choice. It's 3rd and 11. Because he was off initially on the stack, there's a ton of cushion there. So we had told our guys, I don't care if it's 3rd and 11, you can still run trace, because we believe that you're running it because you have so much cushion that you can catch the ball, break a tackle, and get the first down. And that's literally exactly what happened here, and it's week 1, so this made us look like we really knew what we were talking about.
It's always perfect when that happens.
Right. So he breaks on the trace, because this guy, when he gets to 10, the guy's got about 4 or 5 yards of cushion. Yeah. So he breaks off. Now, he didn't trace back very far because the QB got the ball out quick, because this was a very obvious decision. Yeah. So the ball comes out quick, hits him right on his numbers. He spin through the tackle, gains an extra 20 or so, and now we're set up in the red zone.
And that's part of as a defensive guy, getting in stacks, right? They're playing, you know, the press on 1 and the nickel's inside leverage. And now because 1 has that inside release, the nickel's having to run over top. And like you said, that's going to create space no matter what, because what is the nickel thinking when he gets that action? Wheel, right? Like in his mind, even though it was stack and you're just regular releasing, it feels like a wheel, right? It feels like, hey, that guy is wheeling going vertical. That's what it would feel like, even though they came from a stack. So his exit angle is to the sky, right? Is to cover that wheel. And so when your guy shuts it down, just like he did, right, there's going to be that cushion. And now he's stressed. Now I got to come downhill and make a tackle after that guy shut it down. And so, right, because I'm thinking wheel. Oh shit, right? Now I got to come down. So it is, and it talks about how, you know, high school guys, if you're out there and you're listening and you give a shit about what I say, you better have multiple ways to play the stack. You do. And we carried 2 or 3. And, you know, sometimes you use them, sometimes you don't. But if you only play the stack one way, coaches are going to figure that out. And there's a great look at it right there. They're in 2-man under. He's thinking a wheel, and they shut it down, and it's a touchdown. So good point, Coach. I love that clip from a defensive perspective for a learning piece right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that you can do out of this stack, and especially with this. And it was nice that it was the teaching was so continuous from thing to thing. We could say it's just like normal, or it's going to be switched from normal, and the kids were totally fine. And it took me 5 seconds to explain it. I'm not going to say they never messed it up, but it's pretty close. So, next piece is like, all right, so you've taught your receivers, you got your tagged receiver, you got your untagged receivers. What are you teaching to the QB? So, for the QB, in general, we want him to take 3 steps and look it away. It times up really nice with a little play action fake and stuff. We are not a heavy play action team. Part of it is most people know we're going to throw most of the time. Every year I promise myself I'm going to get into it a little bit more. Then I break that promise. So I have already promised myself I'm going to do it a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. But it does work really nice with a little play action fake, times the thing up. Might hold some defenders for you. Holding for the bends is really nice. So there's a lot of good things there. But so the QB is going to take his 3-step drop, and while he's doing that, he's going to try to look the safety away, particularly in your one high, where you might be able to move that guy and gain, an extra little piece of field there to help yourself out. Too high, you kind of know they're going to be where they're going to be, but then you're going to locate the DB. If your guy's not breaking yet, and just try to get a feel for what your guy's about to do. Sometimes it's really obvious, and we tend to get really good throws when it's really obvious. Sometimes it's not. Some of the bends are not obvious. He doesn't know the guy's going to decide to turn inside or run a hard dig. So that's why we've decided it's confirm and fire. We're not just going to guess. We're okay with getting to the 2.2 seconds before the ball gets out. Confirm what they do and rip it. And I said there are rules that he has for when he can come off the tagged wide receiver. So first one, if a slot's tagged, he runs a go and the corner plays over the top. The trace is sitting there outside to help you out. And then the other one, we didn't develop this till during the year, and I've got the clip on here to show exactly why. But we got to snap a Tampa. And man, we thought we had this slot post for a guaranteed touchdown. It looks so good. And then the middle backer comes underneath and picks it. And so we had to have a conversation about the back getting out when it is not a blitz, and how that will either hold the middle backer, or if he wants to take that Tampa drop and get way underneath the post, the running back will be wide open underneath, and you just dump it to him and move on with your life.
Yeah.
So that's what we teach him. And then is this okay? So this is first regular season game of the year. We have scored on our first 2 offensive plays. This is the 3rd offensive play of the game. And this game ended up being 76-60, so it was a long one. But we have the slot at the top is tagged, and if you're not looking at this film, this is a one high coverage look, where they have taken the safety and spun him down to the opposite side of where we tagged, and they've got a linebacker over the top of our slot.
Strong rotation.
Yeah. So when he sees that linebacker, he pretty much knows I'm running a go. That it's done, right?
Yeah.
If we weren't in this, we'd want to be in 4 verts right now, and we'd be doing the same type of thing. Now he bends it outside, which is a little worrisome. Like, he knew he didn't want to mess around with the safety. I get it. But what he doesn't know if that corner is falling back into it. So I'd like him to hold his line just a little bit tighter. And so this is the one where I was talking about, I would not have been mad if the QB went to the trace route here, because that corner is falling off on the go. So if he comes to the trace, you can see the trace is wide open. The outside backer hasn't gotten wide enough. That's why we stand all the way out there, make them spread out.
And his eyes are
so
bad.
he hits this. I can't yell at him, but I would not have been angry if he went to the trace either.
Yeah, strong rotation cover 3, not my favorite thing. But just like you said, he runs up the slot, he winds, the little corner drops off, and the outside backer just has eyes on quarterback. There's no shot he's going to get back to that trace. So I'm with you. It's kind of 2 open guys right there.
So this is the one where we developed the running back needing to hold the middle of the field a little bit better, and you can see the score of this game getting outrageous, 69-47 in the bottom corner. So we're in 2x2 again. We got 2 high safety. And we just had, like, it's week 1, so obviously we haven't seen their full arsenal, and they're trying to pull out everything they can, as we have already scored 69 points.
Yeah.
And the boss has turned to me and he said, "Hey, we can't stop them on defense, so keep going and keep scoring." So I'm still throwing it, and we've called it to the slot here at the bottom. He makes what I think is a pretty good choice to bend. There is a lot of cushion to it, so I would not have been mad if he kind of bent this harder into like a dig. But I don't think there's anything wrong with what he did. And if this linebacker doesn't get underneath it, this is a big play. Unfortunately, the linebacker makes a great play. I don't know if they called Tampa or if they had talked about this on the sideline. This is nothing like what happened the rest of the game, but absolutely fantastic job by him getting underneath. Makes the pick, takes away our big play, gives them the ball. So we come back on Monday and we're watching the film and meetings, and we talked about, all right, running back, you did not have this blitz. That was the line's blitz. So you needed to get out on your check down, and you would have been right about here. And now that's in the QB's vision. So if he sees this linebacker take off, boom, you're sitting right there. It's perfect. We would have been very happy with a little check down there. We probably would have gotten the first down, and we lived to fight another day.
So let's talk about the teaching point that you just went over there with the running back. What is, you kind of did a high level. What is your exact teaching point as far as, what he has and what's his responsibility when he releases?
Sure. So if you get me talking about pass protection, we might go another 2 to 3 hours.
But we got Matt here, so I love it.
Love it.
I figured Matt would be a fan.
I'm a fan of breaking them, if it makes you feel better.
And the good news is I'm kind of adjusting our pass protection, so I don't mind oversharing a little bit here. So in general, we, for many years, have let our running back set our pass protection. So, like, I signal to him and tell him what route and what side of the QB with a hand signal. So I signal in the play to the QB. The QB starts yelling out to everybody, and then the running back and I share one little signal, and so then if his route is to the right, then he's going to tell the line that he's got that side, and that is now the man side in our half slide. So we got he's on the right in the picture we're looking at. So the right side is the man side, and the left side is the slide side. And so it is really that simple, and the QB kind of hears that discussion going on while he's dealing with everything else, and he knows he could see where the back is, so he knows what's going on. But that allows the QB to do something while the running back deals with the protection, which I think is a little different than a lot of people.
Yeah.
But we have always done it to take something off the QB's plate. The running back's got plenty of time to deal with stuff, and he's the guy doing the protecting, so he better know what's going on. So that's how we've done it probably most years that I've been OC. And so as this play develops, there is no blitz on the right side of the line, so the running back should be getting out, and the signal that I had given him for his route was a check down, so he would perfectly be in that space. Now, I understand. I mean, shoot, this is high school. How many people actually throw it to the running back on a check down? If it's the NFL, like, I get it. Lots of people do it. It happens all the time. My running backs look at the quarterback and they're like, I think you hate me. Like, why don't I ever get the ball? Well, because you're always the third read. That's why. So they kind of give up on it over time. And so they end up doing a thing like we're seeing right here, where they kind of float around and kind of look to help, but kind of hope they don't have to help. And and we don't want that, because now we're keeping 6 guys in, and we're not stretching their defenders as much as we should be in the zone. Now on the half slide side, the defensive end goes to the guard, so the left tackle is available. He should be keeping his eyes up, looking for any blitzers, kind of keeping a hand up, which he's doing a great job of. And that blitz ends up running right into him, and we've got it picked up. And that left tackle went to Vandy, so it's no real surprise that he was paying attention and had that handle. If it was the other way, if the back had been on the left, then the back would have needed to pick this up. That is true.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have had a check down available, but that's just kind of how we run the half slide. That pretty good version of it.
No, that's perfect.
Yes,
I was curious myself as to what the exact teaching point on the release is. That was a pretty thorough explanation. I love it.
Yeah,
and very unique that you have the back collar protection. It's very unique. I've never heard that before. So
it's one of those things where it's like, on the weekend when we're game planning somebody, I'm an OC, but I learned football at Miami. So let me rephrase. I'm an OC who's relatively known for throwing the football. I get that. But I learned football at Miami when I was a student assistant there, helping out in the office. And I started with the young offensive linemen and the young running backs, and I would read them the play off the script, and they would tell me what their job was so that they could learn faster and get mental reps while the other guys were going. And so I sat in tons of offensive line meetings and would just, read out the script and let them know what the call was and hear all that conversation. So I come to the passing game from a O-line standpoint, a protection standpoint. So when we divvy up the duties on the weekend, O-line coach is looking at the D-line and he's thinking about the run game and stuff. And I'm thinking about that too. The QB's coach is looking at the backers and the blitz and that kind of stuff. The receivers coach is looking at the DBs and the coverage and thinking about what pass plays we want to do. I don't even think about a pass play till I think about protection. How can we pick this up in our normal, like for us, generally normal is going to be a 6-man half slide. I'm not telling anybody something they don't know already. If we could pick it up with our normal stuff, I'm not too worried about it. Now, the next piece is like, all right, my O-line coach texts me and he goes, these guys got to do the 3 technique. I can't deal with this. I'm pulling my hair out. How can you help me? And so then I'll go, all right, who do I have available? Can I always send the center in that direction? Generally not. Can I use the running back to help out? Am I going to have an H-back this week? What can I do to help him out so that we can get this protected? Because if we can't protect it, there's no point in even calling the play. It's just stupid. So we spend a lot of time on that, and I just count on him to let me know. Tell me what matchups we can't win, and let me know if I need to dedicate an extra human to that, and I'll take care of like the blitz scheme and like how that fits with the protection and that kind of stuff. And it took a long time to get to that point because we used to just worry about the scheme and not worry about who was a dude. And you can get wrecked by some dudes that way. So I mean, gosh, we played so many good kids at defensive line. This area is full of it. And going against a Popka every year for the last 5 or so years has taught a lot of lessons about how to prepare for a real stud there, from Jalen Carter to Caven Call, who's at UCF now. The kid they had this year was unbelievable. It's just, you have to learn how to deal with that. So like the reason I bring this up is that's part of it every week, is we say to the running back, like, hey, if I give you check down, do I need you to chip, or can you just get out? Right. Or, are we more looking for blitz this week and then you get out? But he is always checking something, right? And then if we got them on a swing or something like that, now it's more free release and that kind of thing, or a wheel might be free release, and we just alert the O-line with word to tell them it's hot and just say, hey, do the best you can to pick up the ones you can.
Yeah. So quick question.
Yeah.
I have no idea how much you have left, and that's fine. Let's keep going. I don't care how long this goes. But I talk to a lot of guys that are vertical choice guys. And they're always like, look, you got to major in it. It's what we do. You got to major in it. That's our deep route, all this stuff. How many other kind of dropback stuff, style stuff do you guys carry? Do you feel like, and I'm literally looking for your opinion here, do you feel like you have to major in it? Can you minor in it? How's the install with vertical choice built in?
So this is a question my buddy who suggested to me. He asked me the same thing because he didn't do it, so he wanted to know what I thought. I majored in it in the spring. We put a lot of time into this in the spring, kind of setting it up in the off season so I could test it in the spring when we got our 20 days, that kind of thing. Yeah. We even had a period in the spring, like we always do some kind of combat. So combat for us is like 2 receivers versus linebacker, a corner, and a safety. We're playing half field. I don't like doing 7-on-7 that much, but I do like doing these more kind of smaller pods of it. And so we'll have a day where we do 2-on-3, a 3-on-4 day, and then we have like a man-to-man day. Well, I said, hey, this spring I'm trying something out. I need man every day. So give me 5 minutes of off man. I know you guys don't do it. I don't care. Quarters turns into man eventually. Just do it for me. And so give me that. For 5 minutes, we just went down the line. We lined up in 2x2. The outside guy on the left went, then the slot on the left went, then the slot on the right went, then the outside guy on the right went, and then the backup went, and we just started back on the other side and went across again, and we got like a dozen reps in 5 minutes, maybe more than that. It was like we got so many reps, and that just allowed us to like get the QB and the receiver on the same page and try some things. And so we got a lot of one-on-one reps there. And then once we had that, the rest of it fits pretty easy and you can hold on to it. So we did it there. We did it a little bit in the 2-on-3 pods. You got to be a little more careful because like the defense is going to call me a cheater if I call it for the slot and he runs a bend. I get it. Yeah. And I probably am a cheater at that point. But I'll call it for the outside guy, right? It still makes some sense and that kind of stuff. I'll call it for the middle guy if we're doing trips. And sometimes, like, you might have had another inside backer who would have helped, and I'll just say, you guys can have that win, but I still got my rep. Okay, great. So we found some ways to practice it there. And then, so we do it in the spring game, 3 touchdowns on it. So, looks good. We're going to hold on to it. We do it at camp in the summer. Looks good there. And so we went into it, and it was in the game plan every week. And there were even weeks. There was a week, the kids come up to me on Wednesday. They're like, hey, are we calling deep choice this week? I was like, yeah, why wouldn't we? What are you thinking? And they're like, we haven't practiced it all week. And I was like, I know we can do that. Don't even worry about it. Like, that's in our back pocket now. So it became I definitely majored in it in the spring, but all fall long it just became something we had, something we could do as easy as throwing hitches to everybody. Now you asked like how many other concepts. So it was
downfield. I mean, I get that you're gonna have quick game, but how many other downfield concepts do you pair with it?
I would say like every game we carried deep choice, some version of smash. And a quick game or two, and the quick games don't change the whole year. And then we'd have like a flavor of the week. Like we want to get into some flood this week. We call push, whatever. We had a week where we messed with Y cross for a little while for fun. It's always something I mess with and don't do enough.
Matt knows that's my favorite route as a defensive guy, by the way. Y cross is great if you run it right.
It's really good, and I never trust it, and it's just who I am.
There's a lot of layers in there.
But we had a week where we did that. We the man-to-man teams show up, and we're running some mesh to try to get some rubs and stuff like that. So we'd have something that's like, we want to do this against this team.
Yeah.
And so we just, our QB loves throwing smash, and he's really good at it. So he gets that for every game. He will find a way to throw it. And so he gets that. We all like deep choice. We get that for every game. And then the rest of it is, what do the receivers coach, the QB's coach, and I kind of agree on is the best flavor of the week. And nice. The other thing is, I think that keeps the defensive guys guessing, because you might not get the flavor from last week, right? So you might be wasting time on film.
Yeah, we do a lot of that.
Coach, I find it very interesting that, you know, we installed this in 2018. We had a big arm quarterback as well, and we were trying to find an answer to get the ball downfield, provide good protection for him, and be able to try to push the ball vertically a little bit more. I find it very interesting that we pretty much came to the same the way you run it is how we ran it when we installed it, with a few minor details. But I think that's very obviously it's getting around now of how they're running it and how it's happening. The one difference I'll say that we did was our outside guy. Let's say we were running the slot guy was running the choice. The guy outside of him, which was kind of the dead route, we just ran as our stop route, which was a 7-yard get outside release, sit down on the sideline, and try to, you know, make them widen even more. You know, run to the sideline and sit down. You know, basically is the way we taught it. Besides that, I mean, it's exactly on point for what we did, and we found that 10-yard decision to be clutch. It was crucial to do. And the way we would teach it is we would tell our receivers, hey, you got to know it's 7 yards. You got to have an idea of what's happening. You got to know it's 7 yards. And we found a lot of success in our brief amount of time running it while we had a big arm quarterback. And I was surprised at how well the wide receivers picked up on running the concept, and how much you could actually trust them just to not go and run a vertical, as you said before.
Yeah, I'd be interested. So the kids I had there last year were kids. We had 3 seniors at receiver, 1 junior. Every single one was somebody I had in my math class for at least 1 year. Most of them 2 years, from geometry gifted to algebra 2 gifted. So like, my relationship and trust with these kids, because we'd spend so many hours together, was massive. So I knew they could do it. There was no doubt in my mind. I would be interested if I get like one of the tougher cases, and I'm not sure, like, I don't think it's going to be this year. I think these kids kind of get it, and I think these kids saw last year's kids do well with it, so they want to match that, and the kind of tone is set with it. But we all know that there's going to be some receiver somewhere who's more hard-headed about it, or, you know, different personality. So I'll be interested to see what happens when that crops up, but I don't have that guy in the system right now. Even like the JV guys who, like, they learned it in the spring. We didn't run this on JV. We don't have the people to do it. We don't have the QB. So this was not allowed on JV. But when we brought them up, the receivers up to varsity at the end of the year, the top 3 or so JV receivers, they, first of all, remembered it quickly and sit right back in. And second, they made good choices, right? Like it, and they are very different personalities than the guys I had doing it, but they want to get the ball, you know? And so if getting the ball means making the right choice so you're on the same page with the QB, then that's what they're going to do. And they want to look good because they got something to prove. So so far so good, but we'll see what else happens over the course of the year, or the years that we do this. I wanted to show, I don't know what you guys want to do on time, but I do have just like a couple different versions.
We're good.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'll try to jump around a little bit and not do too much of any one version. Let me share this out. So like I said, we call it the same thing all the time, but I split it up into like, when did I call it to the single receiver or the outside or the slot, that kind of thing. So here, this is a good one because we go FIB because we're doing things at the line, and I just decided, hey, you guys go stand over there and let's see what happens. So I just yelled at them to move over to the other side, and we put our best player in a ton of space on this corner here. And this was a pivotal point in the game because this is that 76-60 game again. We had been up by 28, and they came back and they've got it down to 8. So we need to turn this thing around and get back going in the right direction. And so it's first release, right? It's not inside or outside. He just takes the inside because the corner's standing outside leveraged. And he just keeps running because he broke all the cushion and he's too fast for the huddle camera to keep up. But I promise you, this is a touchdown.
For those of you listening, the safety never moves his feet. They have they're one high. He literally looks towards the trips, which, coach, it's like the lazy routes, right? They're across the field, and 100%. He never moves. And literally, he's looking over his shoulder as your guy's running for a touchdown.
His corner is really wishing he had been more involved in the play.
I've never quite seen that.
So this is the same deal. You're too much the same. Let's keep moving. So here's a different kid doing it down at the bottom. Getting to be our single. We got trips to the right. So single choice is to the left here. Climbs all the way up this DB's back. The DB was inside leveraged and stayed inside, so he just ran right up his back, gets in his blind spot, and goes. And again, huddle camera, too slow. Huddle, if you're listening, please fix that. But that's a touchdown too. This is Spruce Creek. Let's keep. There was a game, I'm trying to find it. Here it is. So we get this the first round of the playoffs, and we were so close to getting knocked out by Boone. Our running back went down early in the game, and they were playing awesome. Much credit to them. And there came a point we just had to throw every down, and we threw deep choice to this receiver 3 times in a row.
This is back to the single, correct, on the bender, or however you call it. Yeah.
We just said, hey, the ball's got to go to our best player over and over and over again, and he'll figure it out, and we'll be all right. And you know, we didn't really talk about this, but when we game plan this, we will kind of look for matchups and try to find, like, there were teams where we're like, they got 4 DBs out there, 3 of them are really good, so we're gonna throw it to whoever gets this other one.
Choice at number 3.
I mean, legitimately find this guy and tag that receiver. And so you could do it that way, or like we would use motion to move our guys to get the matchup with that guy. We don't do a lot formationally. It's really 2x2 trips, stack, maybe don't stack, bunch it up. That's probably, like, we didn't have a tight end, we didn't have a H-back, we couldn't do any of that kind of stuff. If Lake Mary has a tight end or H-back, he plays defensive end or backer or something, you know. So we don't have a ton of choices based on our personnel formationally, but we will mix it up and we will motion into any of those things. So we kind of use it for that. Let me get.
I noticed real quick. You know, obviously, you had a dude. You put him to the single side a lot. Did anybody at some point just double him? Like, anybody run any kind of bracket, right? Because, like, if I know your dude's backside and you're running trips, we're gonna do some kind of. If I'm a 2-high team, which I've been a lot, like, we're gonna do some kind of double, some kind of bracket on that guy backside. Does that deter you from obviously calling choice at that point? Did it even happen? You know, like,
so if it was true bracket and it was done properly, I would be deterred enough to not do it.
So you answered my question. You never saw it. All right.
So we saw things like that outside backer was told by his coach that he should bracket him. But to me, effective bracket, you're going to have, somebody on top and inside and somebody underneath and outside, or, it could be different combinations. But the point is you're covering different parts of my person, different space on him. And we did not see very many effective brackets, so if you weren't going to do that, then we were pretty much going to go to him
of course.
Let him figure it out. But the other piece is this: he was our dude for sure, but all the other guys were pretty dangerous too. And so, I knew he was our best guy outside on the right, but our left slot had 900 yards about 6 games into the year, and 13 touchdowns. So it's not like you could devote infinite resources to one human. We had enough balance that anybody could hurt you. The right slot signed yesterday at a D2 and will continue to play.
Where he signed?
So say that again.
Where he signed?
UNC Pembroke.
There you go. Sorry, I'm always curious about that.
The left slot's walking on at UCF, and so they all were people who could hold their own, right? If we're going to go out there in 10 personnel, everybody's going to have to be dangerous. You can't leave someone they can kind of ignore, or all of a sudden you realize they're putting an outside backer on your outside receiver because they just don't respect him at all, So let me put on a couple of the other ones just so you see, we didn't just go to the single and throw it to the single every time.
I don't really know what it's like to have a receiver go to college. That's I don't think we ever had that.
No, doesn't happen a lot. I got another one that's gonna have a shot though. So this is a slot running it at the top here. We're calling it to the wide side of the field.
So I can see it.
Oh,
yeah, you're good. Perfect.
So we're calling it to the wide side of the field, trying to get this backside safety stuck into the boundary over here to give him a lot of room. Now, this backside safety, I'll give him credit. He didn't buy this curl flat for very long, this terrible curl flat that was intentionally terrible. So he does go over eventually to help, but because the splits are so wide and he's past the hash, it's a long way to go, and we're going to get this ball in there before that happens. So it was keep this or take the defensive PI. We'll keep that through. This is a funny one. I don't remember what we had called, but it was not slot choice to the bottom. And then no one covered him up. And so
now it is slot choice, coach.
Right. We're screaming it. So it only takes 2 words to get in. QB gets it set. Now, of course, I'm screaming it, but I'm trying to scream it only loud enough for my own guys to hear, because I don't want them to notice. They don't have him covered up. They figured out at the last second, but that's the great thing about choice, right? He just went and made him wrong.
Yep.
And it was the first play I could get out of my mouth. It just was the first thing to come to mind when he was uncovered.
If you're on Apple or Spotify, he's talking about running deep choice from the 9-yard line. I love it. Well, it's his deep choice call, right? It's not in theory deep choice, but kind of.
He definitely cut it short. Let's be clear about that. But it was the first play I could get out of my mouth, and it brought the QB's attention immediately to the fact that guy was uncovered.
Yeah.
So here we got kind of a harder bend, right? So the slot at the top is running it versus 2 high safety, and his safety has a ton of cushion, and he bends it to push it around the backer. They can kind of get a feel for that. Like, should I trace or should I dig? I don't know how they do it. I'm too old and fat to figure that out, but they do kind of feel where that backer is and make some good decisions about it over time. You can also
it depends on how that backer's dropping too. This is definitely a spot drop, right? His eyes are on the quarterback. Right. So the bend is nice and easy, right? If they're man matching this, it's a little bit harder of a bend, right? Because that linebacker's kind of what we call robot, roll over and run with the dig a little better. So it's just a good teaching point. It looks like your kids have it totally figured out, right? These guys are spot dropping, and your kids are finding that nice sweet spot between them and safety.
Yeah. The other piece is you can see the improvement in the
running back released.
The running back getting out, right? So
Yeah.
I don't even remember what game this what is this, a veto?
Yeah.
I think it's a veto. Yeah.
I
So
hope
this
you
is like
beat him.
week 3 or 4. But so we had recently had that conversation about the running back needing to get out, and he is perfectly out in his little check down space. And if that backer had dropped and gotten better underneath this bend, then that would be the move. Come right back down. It's right in the QB's vision. That's going to be perfect. Let's see what else.
That's a great example of progression from one week to the next in teaching, or a couple weeks down the road. Of you had that teaching point of when to release, and there you go. We see it on film a couple weeks later.
Here's a little something different. So this one we line up in trips, so that'll just give you an idea. So if you think about to the trips, and we call it to the middle receiver here in the trips. So now we got both rules going. We have an outside receiver to the top who's going to be automatic trace. And then we have an inside receiver who wants to bend and hold the safety. We got a one high safety here, and he's pretty far over. So this is an easy bend job. And then now the slot can just play one-on-one with kind of that roll down safety type person that's over the top of him. And that's pretty easy.
Coach has my favorite way to run that. That's my favorite way, absolutely, to run choice to the trip side when they're playing off number 2. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
We did find later in the year, as the coverages got more mixed over there could be a lot of traffic. And so that was a little bit of a deterrent and a reason we went back to calling it to the single more.
Yeah.
But I do like it. I do like it, but somebody gave us cover 2 and the corner like snuck in underneath the slot's trace route and picked it, and so we had to be more careful about it than I originally thought, just because there's so many bodies that you can get tricked.
Coach, do you ever run it to number 3, or have you done it yet?
This one is to number 3.
Oh, that's a great segue by me.
Yes, excellent. So we're in empty here, and I honestly don't remember why. I think just for fun. Our back's really good out of the backfield, so we let him play receiver for a little bit. But we called it to the middle guy in empty, so to the trip side, but the third guy from the sideline. And it was because he was getting more pressed and by a linebacker, so we knew he could win that matchup no matter what. Like whether he carries a man, whether he zones it off, none of that matters, because that's our receiver, top 3 receiver against your middle backer. Kind of walked out in a place he doesn't want to be. And so he just runs a seam straight down. No safety comes to help in time, and there we go. Oh, also, what should, by rule, what should the receiver just outside of him have done?
Shut it down?
Yeah, he should have shut it down and traced, and he didn't. And he comes back to the sideline, and he goes, I screwed up, and I thought I messed it up for him, and I was going to feel really bad about it. So at least he knew, right? He was very aware that was not what he was supposed to do.
So are both of them running a trace?
So it should have been double trace on the outside, since there were 2
So
guys.
1 and 2 should have traced, and then 3 had the choice.
Right.
Okay.
And again, I expected that he would just know that, because his rule is, am I inside or outside, right? And he was outside, and he should have done it, and he knew it. He just didn't know it till after.
He got caught trying to watch a touchdown, and he was excited for his buddy. And seriously, and that's what it looks like. His eyes are on number 3 the whole time, and it looks like he's just excited to watch it. And then he went, oh crap, I'm 20 yards downfield.
Right, and I'm sure he knew what was going to happen. So he's probably just in cruise control watching it. This one, we're throwing it to the slot on the left. It's 4th and 12 here, but when you hit these this often, the boss sometimes says just go for it, right? And we're kind of in the no man, like there's no good decision here. What do you got to punt this from the 33? So he just said go for it, and well, what am I going to do? I would pick the wide side of the field, let my slot go to work on the safety, And so he runs his 12 as fast as he can. The safety backs up. Linebacker drops outside. He just kind of curls up and takes the space, and we got just enough for the first.
Yeah. Looks like really loose quarters there, and you throw the nice shutdown on too. It's perfect.
So part of that is we got a lot of very loose quarters because we threw so many deep balls that people started just trying to give us space and not understanding that we were going to be very willing to take that space. To the outside receiver. So here we're going to throw it to the outside receiver at the top out of 2x2. Got one high safety, and it's off man, I think, and he just says, all right, you got a lot of cushion. I'm going to trace back down. You can see the Q here. This is kind of what it should look like. The QB throws him back down the trace, and he comes back to meet it. That pulls him away from the defenders, and then that gives him enough time to get turned and finish with the touchdown.
Matt, this is cracking me up because this feels like Aaron running it at Oakleaf. I mean, they threw that shutdown like that like every day 100 times in practice, and I was like, I'm so sick of watching the shutdown get completed. I'm so sick of this.
Well, once everything clears out, it's very easy throw for the quarterback, and right in his line of sight.
Yep. And we were base quarters, or we ran some Ripley's. Out of Ripley's we bailed, and man, they threw that shutdown out of bail Ripley's so much. I just like stop throwing the shutdown.
Yeah, and I mean, look, these throws to the wide side of the field to go to that outside receiver, that is a far throw. So I'm not joking when I say you got to have a big, strong-armed QB. I know I am very lucky. So
yeah, you got one. We had a kid that went to ECU that could throw it, and you're just like, what do we do? Like, defensively, it's demoralizing. You're like, we got to get super creative to combat this.
So here's some of the funkier ones. So we got Stack. Yes. So I think this was the first time we ran Stack, and notice what they do. They both go with the front guy going inside on the bend, and then they go, oh crap, and he has to get back out and try to get to the outside guy, but you don't catch him. It doesn't work that way.
That's probably another big reason. This is that same game where the kid ran over top, isn't it? And you guys see the shutdown. Yeah, that's another reason why the next time he took a bigger angle over top.
So here's another stack. This one they also messed up. So I believe they switched this, but it wasn't supposed to be switched. So you can see both receivers go outside at the beginning, but the guy behind realizes that and just decides to take the other tube. Like, he knows how to fix the problem. So he ends up going back inside, decides to bend it, wins versus one-on-one, and QB throws him a rake.
That's awesome.
Coach, and it looks like their corner was aligned outside your stacked receivers.
Yeah, they're playing
seeing that right.
I think it was like an inside-out type deal.
Yep.
And the other thing was they had just had somebody hurt, because I remember they subbed, so I purposely was calling it to this side to see if I could get the new guy to mess it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. What an advantage that is, running this when you already have a corner aligned outside in that inside-outside technique, that you can go ahead and take one guy, run off the guy that's on the inside, and now you have a whole vertical area with advantage leverage on the corner already.
Well, and that's kind of why we went. I mean, obviously I've explained a lot of reasons, but like my previous passing game was pretty darn static. And so maybe it was good all week in practice, but then if they made an adjustment, then like, am I stuck in that in the game? And so here is a place where the kids just figure it out as it goes along, and we're never stuck in a bad play.
Put your eyes on the receiver, DBs. This is killing me. We talk about this all the time against good quarterbacks. If you put your eyes on the quarterback, you're just going to watch him complete a ball, and your guy just does it time and time again.
Oh, this is a brutal decision. We're going to pretend this didn't happen. So I think that's
I saw that, Coach.
Yeah, pretend you didn't. It was, one of those things where we're getting a little greedy and didn't work out. but I included it because we had a switch on it, and I was trying to show some of the funkier ways it could be done. The one other thing where this helped us, and I'm just going to explain, I'm not going to go look for the clip, but so we get about halfway through the year, and everybody who runs the little like stack now screen or something like that, everybody's got the pump and go off of it, right? It's classic. Some DB's gonna bite, it's hilarious, you get a free touchdown. So we've got that, and we run it and blah blah blah, so people know we got it now, right? And so we're not going to get caught by it again. So what you get is you always get like corner triggers hard, and the safety screams to the outside because he knows he's getting like a wheel or down the sideline action somehow. And our kids come back and they get, so first it happened. Our receiver tries to go outside. He can't because the safety's flown over so far. He just bends it in like he has a choice, but he doesn't, And so the QB slides to that side, buying time. The kid makes the move back to the inside. Now all of a sudden he's wide open because why? The guy opened his hips outside. He gets him back inside. QB puts it on him, and I don't remember if it was a touchdown or a really long game, but it was a big play, right? So then they come on the side, talk to the receivers coach for a second, and all of a sudden the receivers coach comes over to me. He's like, probably doesn't matter in this game because you're probably not going to call that again. But should we let them have that freedom on that? They're the only guy going deep, so they could, And so we ended up allowing that. And so now they've got the ability to make a choice when they get up there. And so that has made that a lot more dangerous because you almost always end up with a one-on-one on one of those things. You get like corner and outside backer flying up, and they leave the safety one-on-one. And so now we got like, that's all we're trying to do, get a one-on-one and make a good choice.
Yeah.
So so that was a place where I did not expect it to creep in,
vertical
but
choice
through the
screen.
season. Yeah, I mean, legitimately. And we didn't say anything different. It was just, the kids kind of figured it out, and then they ask about it, and you just say, yeah, that's on now. We're good.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. It's always been I've been around it a lot, just on the other side of the ball. So I've always, the guy who ran it at our school, I still talk to like every day in the morning. And we used to carpool to Oakley together. So I used to be like, all right, let's go. I need to hear every roll. Like, I got to figure out how to stop this. So we drive the car, and, some of it's ambiguous, like you're saying. And he's like, well, like the kids just figure it out. I'm like, there's no way you say that. And he's like, no, I do. I say that a lot. I'm like, you guys will figure it out. And I'm like, that can't be a coaching point. And he's like, no, it is, because like they figure it out, right? They'll bend it a little more. They'll do this. And so as we've gone further, I'm like, I hate that because, right, like, how do you combat something where it's kind of like, maybe this, maybe it's not.
You got to cover the open grass. That's it.
Yeah. And it's, defensively, obviously you're the one reacting to it. So it's so much harder to react to it than it is to just like, hey, I know my rule. I'm just going to kind of make it right. And so it's definitely a frustrating offense to see.
I think, man-to-man with dudes makes it tough, just like anything else. Not telling anybody something they don't know, but like, we play against Mandarin. We played them twice last year. They got 2 Penn State corners, the safety with all the offers. Everybody's good. It was tough in those games. You didn't see a lot of Mandarin clips up there. But at the same time, you're still trying to find, can I get that one matchup right? How can I get my best guy against their theoretically worst guy, despite the fact that they're all good, and try to figure that out? And then the other thing is the switch stuff can really help you versus the man, and the stack stuff can really help you versus the man. Because if you just line up like, straight up 2x2, and they're going to be cover one no matter what, they don't care. Well, you're just playing into their hands. They're going to take the matchups they want, and they're going to press you up and beat you up. And getting in the stack forces them to think about it and forces moments of indecision. and who's going to have that guy and who's going to have that guy, and what if they both go in, what if they both go out, what if one goes here and there. And so that's kind of where, like, if you can find an easy way in your verbiage to get to that and teach it to your kids, it really helps kind of problem solve ahead of time, where they go, you're like, hey, we're just gonna have to do a lot of this version of it this week, a lot of stack this week because of who they are. And we can do it, like, we have the ability to do it out of bunch. I didn't really do that. I didn't get in bunch much this year, but we talked about what the rules would be. We can do it. We can do a normal version. We can do a switched version out of bunch where they kind of cross each other. I know that sounds awesome, but maybe next year we'll see.
Nightmare fuel.
So
I just imagine myself when I used to coach, just be up at like midnight, like scribbling on the whiteboard like I'm Charlie from Always Sunny or something. Like when he's doing the conspiracy theory thing, he's like, there is no whoever, right?
Yeah. Sylvia.
So, I love it, Coach. Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming on. This was awesome. I think it's. I'm sorry, Matt. I know I'm not going to close it down quite yet. I'll just kind of go ahead, Matt.
No, I got one more, Coach. A lot about the personnel you had. You talked about a lot about those guys. For a coach that wants to install this, but maybe not sure about quarterback, would you have done this with other quarterbacks you've had? Going forward, once this guy's gone, is that something you're going to try to hold on to?
I mean, it depends on what the next guy brings. So, we have been blessed. We're on our second guy who's going to essentially be a 4-year starter. Previous guy went to USF and is now at UCF. But like in 2017, I had a kid who was 5'7" back there. He had different strengths. He was really good at running around, really good at reading defenders for the run game. I don't know if I haven't ever tried to fit this to someone like that. I don't think it would be great. He was great at stuff, but I'm not sure it would be this. I will say that having done this, it makes me much more comfortable with giving the kids options and letting them go figure it out. So we are looking into other versions, and I think there are some other there's a world where you can fit this into your sprint out game. I don't sprint out very much. I think I called it once or twice the whole year. I don't need to sprint out because my QB can throw it from the far hash. And we, like I said, we had him protected. We only had 2 sacks the whole year. So the 2 reasons you would sprint out, shorten the length of the throw or protect the QB differently, we don't need those things. But I imagine a future version, I might need those things, right? So there's a way to do it with that. But then if I'm going to sprint out with it, I'm not going to bend, right? So would I possibly give a choice to the outside, right? And so like it kind of sparks a creativity of what would it look like with a different guy. We would do something, but I don't know, it probably wouldn't be exactly this. Another thing is, like, if your QB's not tall, we all know throwing over the middle is a lot harder when you're not tall. My kid's 6'4", thank goodness. So when he goes to throw a bend, he's got full vision of that. And so, but I've coached them all, like I've been there 18 years and we've had every version you can have. So I don't have the experience to say like it can't work, but I do spend some time thinking about like, how would it work and what were the problems before and how would they fit into this? That way I'm just ready, like I'll at least have thought it through when the next person comes and we'll see what happens, like I think it's important we're all at least having these thoughts, right? Like I don't want to be stuck in a scheme that only fits one group of kids because we don't get to pick our kids and they keep rolling through. As bad as I want to keep them, they keep leaving, and they're going on to college and I'll miss them, but you got to get ready for the next group. And so, every year in the off season, how do I adjust to this group of kids? 2 years ago is a little harder because I thought somebody else was going to be the QB, and then week 3 he takes over all of a sudden, and then you built a system, but you've kind of built it for somebody else. We had a year 2018 when with a previous quarterback took over as a freshman. The whole reason he took over is the senior that we were gonna play there broke his collarbone at camp. Well, I sure wasn't planning on that. That was very unfortunate. But you got to figure it out. You got to adjust to your personnel, and we ran very different plays with the new kid because it's different. So you gotta think about it. You got to reflect. You got to try to. We have a big enough system that we will find something that fits our kids. But this was something that wasn't in our system before, and I'm very glad to have added to it.
Matt, that like enough for you there, bud?
That's good. That's what I wanted to
hear. Perfect. Well, again, Coach, we appreciate you having it. It's about 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and cut this off. If you have any questions for Coach, he is on Twitter. Coach, what's your Twitter handle?
At Adam Don 3, because I made it before I was a coach. I was a coach, but it wasn't for that. I made it before Twitter was necessary for football. So ADAMDON and the number 3.
Coach is old school. In case you guys are wondering, Matt shared me his email. It was an AOL email address. I was flabbergasted by that.
100%. You should
old school
see
Coach.
The spam in my inbox. It's unbelievable.
Coach,
I've had that thing for 25 years probably.
I can't wait to see your MySpace profile. Coach, again, thanks for having me tonight. I thought that was such a great episode, so we appreciate you having on. If you have any questions for Coach, you can reach out to him directly, or if you'd like me or Matt to ask him and get back to you, you can reach out to us at theboarddrillpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at boarddrillpod, or you can follow us on all of our platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, kind of everything we do. We're on TikTok, so if you want to consume our stuff, we're out there. Take a look for us, search us up, and we'll get going. Coach, appreciate having you on tonight. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, Coach.